Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity news for middle market companies, their management teams, and investors. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, August 11th, 2025, and the dog days of summer are definitely here in the Pacific Northwest, and it looks like in other places as well. Quiet for many of our European colleagues who remain significantly better at using their PTO than we do here in the States. This week we're going to talk about ransomware, but in a new variation and build on what we've seen from the attackers to hopefully inform our defenses. A new set of research from Akamai covers the changing techniques used by ransomware groups in what they're now calling quadruple extortion. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time today to look at the evolution that got us to this point and then think about how we can build defenses against these latest techniques. I've included the link below to the full report, but want to highlight how Akamai frames the various stages or evolutions of these extortion techniques. Single extortion, of course, is how it all started, harkens back to the simpler times in the ransomware space when threat actors would simply breach a target, encrypt the data, and demand a ransom to decrypt it. This quickly evolved into double extortion for the sole reason of it generated more revenue for them, more ransom payments, more money, and so they started doing it every time. Double extortion, of course, is where the threat actors actively steal data first, exfiltrate it out of the organization, and then not only do they encrypt, but then they also threaten to expose that exfiltrated data if ransoms aren't paid, effectively allowing them to collect that ransom twice, once to not leak it and then once to decrypt it. Triple extortion happens when ransomware gangs take the above two techniques and add a distributed denial of service or a DDoS campaign against the attacker, or against the victim, adding that extra operational pressure to a business when they're already reeling from the ransomware exfiltration, recovery, notifications, all of those things. And then finally, Akamai notes this quadruple extortion of adding the layer of seeing threat actors actively send messages to partners, customers, executives, and others to add a layer of social pressure to pay ransoms and prevent data exposure. Akamai notes that in their report, they have witnessed in the wild groups such as Alfie/Black Cat, Clop, and Lockbit 3.0 all use this quadruple extortion technique against their victims. They also have some good numbers around frequency, noting that in February of 2025, just a few months ago, Clop claimed credit for 385 attacks in less than a month. So one thing that is absolutely clear from this report is the fact that threat actors are evolving, they're scaling, and they're using AI and other tools to do that. Even this morning, threat intelligence firm ZeroFox had coverage of the ransomware group Dragon or Dragon Force or Dragon Hub, they go by a couple of different names, who had announced some updates to their product on Russian-speaking dark web forums. They are, of course, a ransomware as a service tool that has been active since July of 2024 and has been noted in the high-profile Marks & Spencer's breach in the UK recently, amongst others. So where do we go from here as defenders? Well, I think a couple of things are worth noting. First, if you've been hoping for ransomware to be a waning threat, I think that's waiting in vain, and you should definitely get in gear instead of playing the wait and see game. Ransomware is here, it is not going away, and in fact, the attackers are finding many ways to scale both velocity and volume of attacks, as well as the pressures of these various attack vectors. We need to be thinking on the defensive side about ways to prevent, detect, respond, and recover from events like this, and these approaches have to be comprehensive. We have to look at our data, look at our endpoints, look at our network, look at our identities, and be able to manage both our people and our machines, apply updates and understand baseline activities, and then take every hardening step that's available to us. The report from Akamai includes a couple of projections from Cybersecurity Ventures, who obviously have a vested interest in making ransomware seem as big and bad as possible, given that they invest in companies who provide solutions to that. But they suggest at Cybersecurity Ventures that global ransomware events will cost $57 billion in 2025, a number that heads to $276 billion by 2031, or moving at a clip of more than $5 billion a week worth of global impact. So even if those 2031 numbers are inflated by 100%, that's still a tremendous impact that is more than worth mitigating for each and every one of us. The attackers are continuing to evolve, and we need to ask ourselves, is our security program evolving fast enough as well? If not, let's make some changes, let's get better, and let's manage this risk down. From a fundraising perspective, we saw more than $17 billion in newly committed capital last week, with Carlyle putting up $9 billion for their 10th U.S. opportunistic real estate fund. Over in IPO land, Figma seems to have fallen back to earth, with Bloomberg noting it as the following, quote, Figma's 250% first-day pop was the largest in at least 3 decades for a U.S.-listed company that raised more than $1 billion. So that's quite a good pop. And then, of course, Figma went from that peak of 142.92 all the way down to 80-something, wiping about $21 billion in market cap off the board, or about a month of projected ransomware impact in the year 2031. A reminder that you can find all the articles we talked to in the comments section below. You can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.